In this video, I will be explaining what makes a good movie review and what makes a bad one. I'll be comparing the good ones to the bad ones to each other. Let's take a look at the film reviewer YMS. In his review of the film Spider-Man Far From Home, he was pretty unfair towards the film. He constantly nitpicked the movie for having mediocre cinematography, and he ignored every single other aspect, and he just constantly brought up the cinematography. It's important to bring every single aspect of the film into consideration, instead of just going after one thing and basing your review off of that. There's other aspects to factor in, such as story, acting, writing, etc. Instead of factoring in every element, he picks one small problem and bases the entire review off of it. Also, it's important to factor in intent, as he doesn't understand what the film is trying to do. It was trying to be a fun superhero movie. In a movie like that, having amazing cinematography isn't really the main goal. Let's compare that to Ralph the Movie Maker's review of Spider-Man Far From Home's predecessor, Spider-Man Homecoming. In this review, Ralph brings up the cinematography being mediocre, and he says that it is the worst thing about it, but he doesn't base his whole review off of it. He factors in other aspects, and he doesn't base his whole review off of that. He also understands the intent of the film, and he gives it points for doing what it was trying to do well. The main things he factors in are what a movie like that would have to do well. But Ralph isn't perfect, because in his review of Star Wars, he lets the comedy completely take over the review. In the video, he talks about all the original Star Wars movies. He talks about A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back normally, but when he gets to Return of the Jedi, he just lets the skits completely take over the review. He didn't like Return of the Jedi as much as the first two, and he has a skit where Disney kidnaps him and forces him to give it a perfect review. I think it would have been much better if he just reviewed Return of the Jedi instead of just turning it into a joke video. At the end of the video, I just barely had any idea what he thought of the movie, because he just ended up letting the jokes completely take over the review. In part 2 of his Star Wars review, he does a joke review of the Phantom Menace where he called it brilliant. Once again, he tries way too hard to be funny, and at the end of the video, nobody had any idea what he thought of the movie. Let's look at an example of how to do skit reviews. In Nostalgia Critic's review of the 2017 It remake, he blends the skits and comedy with the review and critiques incredibly well. In this video, and a lot of his other videos, he recreates the movie that he is reviewing scene for scene. Even though Nostalgia Critic is a film critic, what he is really passionate about is making skits. But he also reviews the movie and brings up the positives and negatives. At the end, after all of the skits, he gives his final thoughts on the movie. Let's look at another example of how not to do skits and reviews. In another one of Nostalgia Critic's videos, he reviews The Wall. This review is not even a review. He doesn't even talk about the movie. The whole thing is just a song parody. Nostalgia Critic is supposed to be a film critic, and he's supposed to review movies. Even in his other skit-based reviews, he talks about the movie and he critiques it, while also parodying the movie. But in this video, he only briefly gives his thoughts on the movie at the end. The final scene of this review is just ridiculous. In the final scene, a bunch of random characters that have nothing to do with Nostalgia Critic and have nothing to do with The Wall come in and sing critiques for the movie. At the end of the video, he very briefly gives his thoughts on the film. The video is almost 40 minutes long, and the only time he talks about the movie is a very brief 10 seconds. This video has become very controversial in the film review community, and personally I think that it is the worst movie review of all time. Even the Minions review I made when I was 10 years old is better than Nostalgia Critic's video. Just like in Nostalgia Critic's video, in this video, me and my friend Michael, who I reviewed the movie with, had absolutely no idea what we were doing when we barely even talked about the movie. Most of the time, we just talked about random things like autism and Good Mythical Morning. Occasionally, we mentioned the Minions movie, but for the most part, we just do random things.
I crowned the best film. So, do you want to say your favorite part?
This video is still pretty funny, but Nostalgia Critic's video, on the other hand, isn't funny at all. The video is 8 minutes long, but whenever we talk about the Mans movie, we just make random remarks that barely tell the audience anything about what we thought.
I recommend it to people that like yellow things.
The only thing that Michael says is that he recommends it to everyone except adults. I do most of the reviewing because Michael wanted me to talk as much as him in the video, but whenever Michael talks, he just says random things that aren't relevant to anything.
And, by the way, we're not copying Good Mythical Morning. We made that a lot before, just kidding. Okay,
And the only somewhat useful things I say are that it's my favorite Despicable Me movie, well, at the time it was, and that my favorite scene was when they hypnotized the guards. The video is so incompetent, we had so little of a plan, that when we start the video, I didn't even realize we were recording, and I was telling Michael a joke about one of his Club Penguin videos.
It causes a fault line.
dude, I already started recording.
Also, when I was 10 years old, I had no critical capability, and I wasn't informed about the process of making a movie, so a lot of the times in the video, I have no clue what to say, and I don't understand how to do improv.
Didn't give me any lines I'm supposed to say.
Overall, this video is pretty bad, but really funny.
There's a clip at the end where the minions sing, and everyone gets scared off by a T-Rex.
That's not a very good spoiler.
Darn it.
In conclusion, movie reviews are a very interesting media. Even though there are a lot that aren't very good, I really like movie reviews, and I love writing my own ones, but let's be real here, nothing will ever top Michael and Jason.